Turn around and place your hands behind you. Sergeant Ryan Cole gave the order before Angela Brooks could finish her sentence. The police station parking lot was nearly empty, washed in the cold blue light of security lamps and the faint glow of dawn. Angela stood beside a rented black sedan wearing a charcoal coat, one hand holding her driver's license and the other resting near a leather folder marked for executive transition. She had not raised her voice. She had not crossed a barrier. She had only asked Ryan to call Deputy Chief Laura Mitchell. "I have an appointment inside," Angela said. Ryan looked at her identification, then at the unmarked car, as if one cancelled out the other. "This area is restricted to police personnel." "Then verify my name." Officer Kyle Bennett stood several feet behind Ryan, his body camera recording every word. He glanced toward the mobile terminal inside the patrol vehicle, where the morning transition schedule was already open. Angela Brooks appeared near the top. Ryan did not ask him to check. "People say many things when they are somewhere they should not be," Ryan said. "If stories about dignity, courage, and justice matter to you, subscribe and stay with Angela," because the officers confronting her had no idea that the chair waiting inside the station belonged to her. Angela studied Ryan's face. His suspicion was not uncertain. It was comfortable. He had already decided what she was before he knew who she was. "Call Deputy Chief Mitchell," she repeated. Ryan extended his hand toward the leather folder. "Place the bag on the ground." Angela obeyed slowly, making certain Kyle's camera captured every movement. The folder slipped open when it touched the pavement. 19 complaint files spread beneath the security light, their pages held together by black clips. Ryan looked down. His own name appeared across several cover sheets. Sergeant Ryan Cole. Use of force review. Unverified detention. Inaccurate reporting. His expression changed for only a second, but Angela saw it. "Where did you get those?" he asked. "That is a question for Deputy Chief Mitchell." Ryan stepped between Angela and the papers. "You are not authorized to possess internal records. You have not verified my authorization." Kyle shifted his weight. He had seen the schedule. He knew the name. Still, he said nothing. Angela looked directly at his camera. "Officer Bennett, is your recording active?" Kyle nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Then preserve it." Ryan turned sharply toward him. "Do not respond to her instructions." Angela remained still. The station windows reflected the three of them in pale strips of glass. Behind those windows, employees were preparing a podium for the new police chief's swearing-in ceremony at 9 o'clock. A blue cloth covered the nameplate. Coffee brewed in the lobby. City officials would arrive within hours. No one inside knew the woman being questioned in the parking lot was the person they were preparing to welcome. Ryan opened his tablet and began typing. Unidentified woman entered restricted police property. Became confrontational when redirected. Angela watched the words appear. "You saw my identification," she said. "Identity does not equal authorization." "Then verify the appointment." Ryan ignored her and continued writing. Kyle looked again toward the patrol computer. The confirmed schedule remained visible. Angela noticed his hesitation. "Did the system show my name?" she asked. Kyle remained silent. That silence told her everything. Ryan finished the sentence and reached for the files. Angela did not stop him. She had come early to observe the station before anyone prepared a performance for its new leader. Now she was seeing something more revealing than any formal briefing could provide. Ryan believed he was controlling an intruder. Kyle believed staying quiet would keep him safe. Neither understood that the body camera, the false report, and the complaints scattered beneath their feet had already become part of Angela's first official investigation. 10 hours earlier, Angela Brooks sat alone at the dining table of the furnished apartment the city had provided for her transition. Outside the windows, Westbridge glowed beneath a thin layer of winter rain. Inside, the room was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the steady turn of pages beneath her hands. 19 complaint files covered the table. Some were thick with statements and photographs. Others contained only a few pages, as though the people who filed them had been dismissed before anyone truly listened. Angela read every line. Subject became verbally aggressive. Subject refused lawful direction. Officer feared escalation. The phrases repeated so often that they no longer sounded like separate observations. They sounded like a template. Most of the people described in the files were black. Many had begun their encounters by asking a simple question: why am I being stopped? 13 reports carried Sergeant Ryan Cole's signature. 6 complaints had been closed by Captain Robert Hale without a complete review of body camera footage. One involved a college student questioned outside his own apartment. Another involved a nurse detained near the hospital where she worked. A third came from the younger brother of Maya Turner, a civilian employee at the police station. He had waited in the employee parking lot to drive his sister home after a late shift. Ryan described him as suspicious and evasive. The station camera showed him sitting inside his car with the engine off. Angela placed that file beside the others and leaned back. At 9 o'clock the following morning, she would stand before the mayor, the city council, and the department to take the oath as Westbridge's new chief of police. Her appointment had followed 2 years of public criticism, federal review, and declining trust between the department and the neighborhoods it served. The city wanted a ceremony. Angela wanted the truth. She had spent 11 years as a federal prosecutor before leading a police reform office in Baltimore. She knew departments rarely revealed their culture during official tours. Floors were polished. Reports were prepared. Supervisors chose which employees would speak. Everyone behaved differently when they knew the new chief was watching. Angela closed the final complaint and called Deputy Chief Laura Mitchell. "I am coming in early," she said. "How early?" 6 o'clock. Laura paused. "The transition team is not scheduled until 7:30. That is why I am coming at 6. Angela asked Laura not to send a vehicle, escort, or department-wide announcement. She would enter through the employee lot wearing ordinary business clothes and carrying her own files. Only Laura and the mayor's chief of staff would know the plan. "Some officers have not seen your photograph," Laura warned. "Then they can verify my name," Angela replied. Before ending the call, she asked for one additional safeguard. All body camera and station security footage from the morning shift was to be preserved automatically. Laura agreed without asking why. Angela gathered the 19 files into a leather folder and clipped the transition appointment to the inside cover. She placed her driver's license and signed city identification in an outer pocket where they could be reached easily. On the chair beside her hung a charcoal coat. On the wall across the room was a framed photograph of her father, a high school history teacher who had once been held beside his own car because an officer assumed it had been stolen. Angela had been 16 when he told her, "Do not let their suspicion write your identity." She carried those words into courtrooms, oversight hearings, and every room where authority had confused confidence with truth. At 5:30 the next morning, she left the apartment and drove a rented sedan through nearly empty streets. The ceremony podium was already being prepared inside the station when she entered the employee parking lot. Ryan Cole stood beneath a security lamp with Officer Kyle Bennett beside him. Angela parked, lifted the leather folder from the passenger seat, and stepped into the cold. Ryan looked at the unmarked car, the unfamiliar black woman, and the employee entrance behind her. He made his decision before she reached him. Sergeant Ryan Cole had worked for the Westbridge Police Department for 22 years, long enough for younger officers to treat his habits as unwritten policy. His photograph hung in the main hallway beside a commendation for helping evacuate families during a warehouse fire. He had found missing children, delivered bad news to parents, and stayed late after difficult calls when others had already gone home. People trusted him because he sounded certain. Ryan trusted himself for the same reason. Over time, certainty had become more important to him than verification. He called it instinct. He believed years on patrol had taught him how to recognize trouble before it announced itself. What he never examined was how often that instinct sharpened around black residents and softened around people who looked familiar to him. A white contractor arriving without the correct parking permit might receive a warning and directions. A black visitor asking why identification was required could become argumentative in Ryan's report. A familiar city official could pass through the employee entrance with a wave. An unfamiliar black employee might be asked the same question 3 times. Each moment looked small when viewed alone. Together, they formed a pattern. Officer Kyle Bennett had noticed it during his first month working with Ryan. Kyle was 28, eager to earn a permanent place in the patrol division, and careful not to challenge the men who evaluated his performance. He had watched Ryan speak warmly to a white attorney who forgot his building pass, then question a black public defender for several minutes even after her credentials were confirmed. Kyle told himself Ryan was only being thorough. It was easier than admitting that thoroughness changed depending on who stood in front of him. Maya Turner had stopped making excuses long ago. She worked the civilian reception desk and knew every shift schedule, access code, and supervisor extension in the building. 6 months earlier, her younger brother had waited in the employee lot to drive her home after midnight. Ryan approached the car, questioned him, and later wrote that he appeared evasive. The security footage showed a tired 20-year-old college student answering every question while holding his hands where Ryan could see them. Maya filed a complaint. Captain Robert Hale closed it within 4 days. The written conclusion said Ryan had acted within reasonable safety practices. No one asked Maya why her brother had been described as suspicious before he did anything suspicious. Ryan considered the closed complaint proof that he had been right. Captain Hale considered it one less problem on his desk. Kyle considered it a warning about what happened to people who spoke up. That morning, Ryan began his shift at 5:45. He poured coffee into a paper cup, reviewed the overnight arrest log, and greeted 2 detectives entering through the employee door. Neither scanned a badge. Ryan knew them, so he held the door open. At 6 o'clock, he saw a city maintenance supervisor walk across the lot without a visible pass. The man was white, middle-aged, and familiar. Ryan nodded and let him continue. Then the rented black sedan turned into the employee area. Angela stepped out in a charcoal coat with a leather folder under her arm. Ryan did not see a future chief of police. He did not see a former federal prosecutor or the woman assigned to rebuild trust in his department. He saw an unfamiliar black woman standing where he believed she did not belong. By the time she reached the security lamp, he had already decided she needed to explain herself. By the time she presented identification, he had already decided the explanation was not enough. And when she asked him to verify her appointment, Ryan heard not cooperation, but challenge. Years of praise, protected habits, and unexamined assumptions stood behind him like invisible officers. That was why he ignored the schedule Kyle had seen. That was why he began writing before he finished asking questions. Ryan believed experience had taught him to recognize danger. In truth, it had taught him how to make prejudice sound professional. Angela could have ended the confrontation with 5 words. "I am your new chief." The sentence waited behind her teeth while the cold air pressed against her face and the security light reflected from the wet pavement. She chose not to say it. The moment had become larger than her pride. Ryan had already ignored her identification, ignored her request for verification, and ignored the schedule Kyle had seen on the patrol computer. If she revealed her position too soon, the officers might correct their behavior for her while leaving the deeper pattern untouched. Worse, the reports and camera files connected to the 19 complaints could be altered before anyone outside the chain of command preserved them. Angela looked down at the leather folder lying open near her shoes. Ryan's name appeared across several pages. He had seen it. The question was whether he understood what those files meant. "Call Deputy Chief Laura Mitchell," Angela said again. Her voice remained even. "She can confirm my appointment." Ryan kept his attention on the documents. "You are carrying internal material without authorization. You have not verified whether I am authorized. Place the folder on the hood of the car." Angela followed the instructions slowly. Kyle's camera remained pointed toward her. She positioned the folder where every movement could be recorded, then stepped back with her hands visible. Ryan reached for the first complaint file. Angela noticed the slight tightening around his mouth when he recognized the date. It was the report involving Maya Turner's brother. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "That question has already been answered. Contact Deputy Chief Mitchell." Kyle glanced toward the patrol computer again. The morning transition schedule was still open. Angela Brooks. Executive arrival. 6 o'clock. Confirm access through command staff. The information was clear enough for any officer willing to read it. Kyle moved one step toward the screen. Ryan noticed. Do not touch that terminal. Kyle stopped. Angela watched the younger officer's face. He knew something was wrong, but fear of crossing Ryan held him in place. Officer Bennett, she said, did the system display my name? Ryan answered before Kyle could speak. You are not directing my officer. I asked him a factual question. And I told you this area is restricted. Angela held Ryan's gaze. Restricted areas require verification. You are refusing to verify. For the first time, his confidence showed a crack. He looked toward the station windows, where movement had begun behind the glass. Staff members carried boxes toward the lobby. Someone adjusted the covered nameplate on the podium. Ryan seemed to sense that the morning was moving toward something he did not understand. Instead of slowing down, he tightened his control. Step away from the vehicle. Angela obeyed. Turn toward the building. She obeyed again. Every calm movement weakened the story he was already preparing to write. There was no threat in her posture, no raised voice, no refusal. Only a black woman asking a police sergeant to confirm facts before making a judgment. Ryan opened his tablet and began entering notes. Unidentified female. Restricted area. Refused initial direction. Angela watched him type. I followed every instruction you gave. Ryan did not look up. You challenged lawful authority. I requested verification. That is not your decision. Facts are not a decision. Kyle lowered his eyes. The sentence settled between them. Angela understood then that Ryan was not simply mistaken. He needed the situation to remain what he had first assumed, because admitting error would force him to question every report written the same way. A door opened inside the station. Maya Turner stepped into the lobby and looked through the glass. Her eyes moved from Angela to Ryan, then to the scattered complaint files. Recognition crossed her face. Ryan turned toward her and lifted one hand, signaling her to stay inside. Maya did not move closer, but she reached beneath the reception desk and pressed the command that preserved the exterior security footage. Angela saw the small red indicator appear near the camera housing. Ryan did not. He was still writing. Angela looked directly into Kyle's body camera. Please record this exactly, she said. He saw my identification. He was shown my appointment. He refused to verify either one. Ryan stopped typing. The wet pages shifted in the wind between them. Somewhere inside the building, a telephone began ringing. It was Deputy Chief Mitchell returning the call. The telephone rang twice before Ryan silenced it with one glance toward the lobby. He gathered the complaint files, closed Angela's leather folder, and told her to walk toward the employee entrance. Angela complied without argument. Kyle followed several feet behind, his body camera still recording. The glass door opened with a soft mechanical click, and the cold air gave way to the dry warmth of the station. Coffee, printer toner, and floor cleaner filled the lobby. Ahead of them, workers were arranging chairs for the morning ceremony. A blue cloth covered the nameplate on the podium. Ryan guided Angela toward the reception area as though moving her farther inside would strengthen the story he had already chosen. Maya Turner stood behind the front desk, one hand near the security controls. She recognized Angela's name from the transition schedule and saw the leather folder in Ryan's hand. Her expression changed, but Ryan spoke before she could. Do not interfere, Maya. Deputy Chief Mitchell is calling, Maya said. I will handle it. Ryan placed the folder on the counter and opened a formal incident report on the station computer. His fingers moved quickly. Unidentified woman entered restricted police property and became confrontational after being redirected. Angela read the sentence from where she stood. You examined my identification. Ryan continued typing. Identity does not establish access. You were shown my appointment. The appointment was not confirmed. Kyle looked toward the patrol terminal visible through the open office door. The schedule was still displayed there. Angela followed his eyes. Officer Bennett, did the system show my name and arrival time? Kyle swallowed. Ryan stopped typing and turned toward him. You do not need to answer that. Angela's voice remained calm. He is wearing a recording device. The answer already exists. Maya lowered her eyes to the reception monitor. The exterior cameras were preserved. She now selected the lobby feed and placed it under the same protection. Ryan returned to the report. Subject refused repeated lawful instructions. Angela felt the words land with the same cold weight as the phrases in the 19 complaint files. "Which instruction did I refuse?" she asked. Ryan did not answer. "I placed the folder down. I stepped away from the vehicle. I entered the building when directed. Which instruction did I refuse?" "Your attitude was noncompliant." "An attitude is not an action." Kyle shifted his feet. Angela turned slightly so his camera could see her face. "Officer Bennett, did I threaten either officer?" Kyle looked at Ryan, then at the floor. His silence lasted only a few seconds, but it carried the weight of a decision. Maya watched him with disappointment. Ryan interpreted the silence as permission and typed another line. Subject displayed escalating behavior and challenged officer authority. Angela looked at the report, then at Kyle. "Silence does not protect the truth," she said. Ryan closed the report window halfway, as though the screen itself had become too visible. "You are not here to lecture officers." "No," Angela replied. "I am here to see how this department behaves when it believes no one important is watching." Ryan's hand froze over the keyboard. Maya quietly reached for her personal telephone beneath the desk. She sent a brief message to Laura Mitchell, "Your guest is inside. Ryan has written a report. Cameras preserved." Laura answered almost immediately. "Keep everything secure. I am coming now." Ryan printed the report. The machine pulled the page through with a dry mechanical sound that seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet lobby. He signed his name at the bottom before checking the missed call, before verifying Angela's appointment, and before asking Kyle what the computer had shown. Then he slid the page across the counter. Angela read the final line. Subject remained uncooperative throughout contact. She lifted her eyes to Ryan. "You wrote the conclusion before you confirmed the facts." Ryan reached for the report. "The report reflects my observations." "No," Angela said. "It reflects your decision." Behind him, the elevator bell sounded. The doors began to open, and Deputy Chief Laura Mitchell stepped into the lobby with the mayor's chief of staff beside her. Laura Mitchell stepped out of the elevator and stopped when she saw Angela beside the reception desk. For one brief moment, recognition moved across her face. Angela answered with the smallest shake of her head. "Not yet." Laura understood. The report was already printed. The cameras were preserved. Ryan had made his choices without knowing who stood before him. Revealing Angela now would expose his mistake, but it might also give him a chance to rewrite the reason for it. Laura turned to the mayor's chief of staff. "Please wait upstairs," she said. Then she looked at Maya. "Secure every recording from this morning." Ryan straightened. "Deputy Chief, I detained an unauthorized visitor in the employee lot." Laura did not look at Angela again. "Has her identity been verified?" She provided identification, but she could not establish access. "Did you call me?" "I was completing the incident report." Laura glanced at the signed page on the counter. "Before verification." Ryan hesitated. "Based on the circumstances." The answer hung in the dry lobby air. Laura asked Maya to place the report, the visitor log, and the complaint files in a secure evidence envelope. Ryan's hand moved toward the leather folder. Laura stopped him with a quiet instruction. "Leave it where it is." The certainty in his posture began to thin. Angela remained silent. She had wanted to see whether the department followed procedure when no one important appeared to be watching. Now she was watching a different test. Laura knew exactly who she was, yet she chose evidence over immediate rescue. That choice protected more than Angela's dignity. It protected every person whose complaint had once been reduced to a sentence written by someone in uniform. Laura directed Maya to escort Angela to the small interview room beside the lobby. "She will wait there while I review the records." Ryan nodded as though the decision confirmed his authority. Angela walked into the room without resistance. The door closed softly behind her. Inside, the temperature was several degrees colder. A metal table stood beneath a fluorescent light. 2 paper cups sat beside an empty water dispenser. Through the narrow window, Angela could see workers arranging rows of chairs in the ceremony hall. Someone tested the microphone. A low burst of static passed through the wall, followed by silence. On the stage, the chair reserved for the new chief remained empty. Angela sat down and placed both hands on the table. For the first time that morning, no one was speaking to her. The quiet gave the words from Ryan's report room to return. Unidentified. Confrontational. Uncooperative. They were the same words she had read 10 hours earlier. They had appeared beside the names of a nurse, a college student, a public defender, and Maya's younger brother. Angela had understood those files intellectually. Now she understood their temperature, their sound, and their weight. She understood what it felt like to answer calmly and watch calmness become defiance on a page. She understood how quickly a person could disappear beneath an officer's description. Her eyes rested on the reflection of the fluorescent light across the metal table. She remembered her father standing beside his car on a winter evening many years earlier. He had come home late, not angry, but quieter than usual. When she asked what happened, he told her that an officer had assumed his own car was stolen. Angela had expected him to speak about humiliation. Instead, he spoke about memory. People forget the questions they asked, he told her, but reports remember the answers they wanted. At 16, she had not fully understood. Sitting in that cold room, she did. Outside, Laura reviewed the body camera recording with Maya and Kyle. Ryan stood several feet away, no longer speaking. The footage showed Angela providing identification. It showed Kyle seeing the appointment schedule. It showed Ryan refusing verification. Then Laura opened the printed report and compared each sentence to the recording. The difference was not dramatic. That made it worse. A word changed here. A fact disappeared there. A question became a challenge. Cooperation became attitude. Inside the interview room, Angela heard footsteps approaching. She lifted her head as the handle began to turn. The chair upstairs was still empty, but the truth had already entered the building. The handle turned, and Laura Mitchell entered the interview room with Maya Turner beside her. Laura closed the door, placed the printed report on the metal table, and looked at Angela with a seriousness that carried both apology and restraint. "The recordings are secure," she said. "The exterior camera, the lobby camera, Officer Bennett's body camera, and the access schedule." Angela nodded. "And the old complaints?" Maya copied them before Captain Hale could access the system. Angela looked toward Maya. The receptionist's expression was tense, but steady. "You preserved evidence when no one ordered you to," Angela said. "I preserved what should have been protected the first time," Maya replied. Outside the room, footsteps and low voices moved through the lobby. City officials had begun arriving for the swearing-in ceremony. Ryan stood near the reception desk, watching every person who passed through the doors. His report remained inside a sealed envelope, but he still believed the morning could be explained as a procedural misunderstanding. Kyle stood several feet away, pale and quiet, replaying the moment he had seen Angela's name on the schedule and chosen not to speak. Laura opened the interview room door. "It is time," she said. Angela rose. She did not adjust her coat or smooth her hair. She did not need to prepare herself for the people outside. They were the ones unprepared for her. The 3 women entered the lobby together. The mayor, 2 city council members, Captain Robert Hale, and several department commanders were gathered near the ceremony hall. Conversation stopped when they saw Angela walking beside Laura. Ryan stepped forward. "Deputy Chief, I can explain the detention." Laura continued past him. "You will have that opportunity." The mayor approached Angela with concern. "Dr. Brooks, are you all right?" The title struck the room like a bell. Ryan's eyes moved from the mayor to Angela, then toward the covered nameplate on the stage. A city employee pulled the blue cloth away. Gold letters caught the morning light. Dr. Angela Brooks, Chief of Police. No one spoke. Ryan stared at the name, then at the woman he had called unauthorized, unidentified, and uncooperative. Kyle lowered his head. Captain Hale's face tightened as he noticed the leather folder in Maya's hands. Laura addressed the officers in a calm voice. Chief Brooks arrived for a scheduled executive transition at 6 o'clock. Her name was entered in the access system. Her identification was valid. Her appointment was available for confirmation. Ryan swallowed. I did not know who she was. Angela looked directly at him. That is not the problem. The room remained silent. She stepped closer, not with anger, but with the controlled clarity that had carried her through courtrooms and oversight hearings. The problem is that you decided who I was before you verified anything. Ryan glanced toward the mayor and the commanders, searching for a way to restore the shape of authority around him. Chief, I believed I was protecting the facility. Protection requires facts. Angela pointed toward the sealed report. You wrote that I refused instructions. The recording shows that I followed them. You wrote that I became confrontational. The recording shows that I asked for verification. You wrote that I was unidentified after examining my identification. Ryan's confidence finally gave way. It was a misunderstanding. Angela held his gaze. Would it still be a misunderstanding if I were not your chief? He had no answer. Kyle stepped forward before silence could protect him again. I saw her name on the schedule, he said. Every face turned toward him. His voice shook, but he continued. Sergeant Cole told me not to check the terminal. I should have said something. Captain Hale interrupted. This should be handled internally. Maya looked at him. That is how the other complaints disappeared. She placed the copied records on the reception counter. 19 complaints, 13 reports signed by Sergeant Cole, and 6 files closed without complete camera review. Hale's expression changed. Ryan looked toward the documents and understood that the morning had revealed more than a mistaken detention. It had connected his language, his habits, and the protection surrounding him. Angela turned toward the ceremony hall. The chair waiting on the stage was no longer empty because the department had discovered her rank. It was hers because she was prepared to make the department answer to the truth. Before walking inside, she looked back at Ryan. My title changed your fear, she said. It should not have changed the facts. Angela took the oath at 9 o'clock exactly as scheduled. The mayor spoke about trust, reform, and a new beginning, but Angela understood. That change would not come from a speech. It would come from records, cameras, policies, and the courage of people willing to tell the truth when silence felt safer. When the ceremony ended, she did not call reporters into the lobby or demand that Ryan be removed in front of his colleagues. She signed an order creating an independent review led by an outside civil rights attorney, a retired police commander from another state, and a community oversight representative. Every complaint connected to Ryan Cole would be reopened. Every report would be compared with body camera footage, dispatch records, access logs, and witness statements. Captain Robert Hale's decisions would be reviewed separately. Ryan was placed on administrative leave from patrol duties while the investigation proceeded. Kyle Bennett remained employed, but he was removed from field assignment and ordered to provide a complete statement about what he had seen, what he had known, and why he had remained silent. Angela did not describe Kyle as innocent simply because he had not written the report. Silence had helped the report become official. Over the next 4 months, the review found a pattern that could no longer be dismissed as misunderstanding. Ryan had used words such as aggressive, evasive, and non-compliant far more often in reports involving black residents than in similar encounters involving white residents. In several cases, video showed calm questions that became hostility on paper. In others, requests for explanation were described as refusal. Captain Hale had closed complaints without reviewing complete recordings, and he had repeatedly accepted Ryan's written version over contradictory evidence. At the formal hearing, Ryan sat across from Angela in a plain conference room. The 19 files rested between them. Maya Turner sat beside the independent review panel. Kyle sat behind Ryan, waiting to testify. Ryan began with the same explanation he had offered in the lobby. I was trying to keep the station secure. Angela placed the parking lot video beside his signed report. Security requires verification, she said. You had identification. You had a confirmed schedule. You had an officer who saw my name in the system. You ignored all 3. Ryan looked at the screen. I made a mistake. A mistake happens once, Angela replied. A pattern happens when the same choice keeps producing the same harm. The panel reviewed footage from other complaints. A black nurse calmly asked why she had been stopped. Ryan described her as argumentative. Maya's brother answered every question. Ryan described him as evasive. A public defender displayed valid credentials. Ryan wrote that she challenged authority. With each recording, the language in the reports became harder for him to defend. Finally, Ryan lowered his eyes. I thought I was reading danger, he said. I was reading people through assumptions I never questioned. The admission did not erase the damage, but it was the first honest sentence he had offered. Ryan accepted a permanent removal from patrol and access control duties. He was reassigned to a supervised administrative role, required to sign corrective addenda for inaccurate reports, and ordered to participate in accountability sessions with affected residents. Captain Hale was removed from complaint review responsibilities and later resigned after the investigation found repeated failures of oversight. Kyle completed ethics retraining and agreed to speak openly about the duty to intervene when another officer ignores facts. Angela refused to require forgiveness from anyone. Some residents accepted Ryan's apology. Others did not. She protected both choices. 6 months after the hearing, Maya became supervisor of a newly independent complaint office with authority to preserve footage automatically and review cases outside the normal chain of command. The department adopted a policy requiring officers to document the exact behavior behind words such as aggressive or uncooperative. General labels were no longer enough. At the first training session, Angela stood before a room of officers and placed Ryan's original report on the screen beside the video. The danger was not only what happened in the parking lot, she said. The danger was how easily assumption became an official record. Then she turned off the screen, leaving the room quiet. Enough for every officer to understand that accountability was not revenge. It was the discipline of making power answer to truth. 1 year later, the Westbridge Police Department looked almost the same from the outside. The same brick walls faced the avenue. The same flag moved above the entrance. The same glass doors opened into the same bright lobby. What had changed was harder to photograph. It lived in the pause before an officer made an assumption, in the questions asked before a report was written, and in the records that could no longer disappear inside a closed office. On a clear Monday morning, Angela Brooks entered through the employee lot wearing a charcoal coat and carrying a paper cup of coffee. No ceremony waited for her. No cameras followed. She preferred it that way. Inside the lobby, an elderly black woman stood at the reception desk holding an empty purse. She explained that her wallet had gone missing on the bus and that she needed help filing a report. The young officer behind the counter listened without interrupting. He asked where she had last seen it, repeated her answers carefully, and explained each next step in plain language. When the woman became confused about a form, he moved around the desk and helped her complete it. No one called her difficult. No one treated her questions as defiance. Maya Turner, now supervisor of the Independent Complaint Office, watched from the nearby doorway. She met Angela's eyes and gave a small nod. Across the hall, Officer Kyle Bennett stood before a class of new recruits. On the screen behind him was a single sentence from a training policy: an officer's duty to the truth does not end when a colleague makes the mistake. Kyle spoke without excuses. He told them about the morning he had seen Angela's name on the schedule and remained silent because he feared challenging a senior officer. I did not write the false report, he said, but my silence helped it survive. The recruits listened differently after that. In a supervised administrative office at the back of the building, Ryan Cole sat with the final file from the independent review. It belonged to a black public defender he had once described as confrontational after she calmly requested that he verify her credentials. The original report remained untouched as part of the official record. Beneath it, Ryan signed a corrective addendum. The citizen remained calm. Her identification was valid. She requested verification and complied with all instructions. He read the words twice before placing the pen down. They were simple words. They should have been written correctly the first time. Ryan carried the completed file to Maya's office. As he crossed the lobby, he saw Angela standing near the glass doors. Their eyes met. He did not offer another apology. He had learned that apologies could become another way of asking injured people to ease his discomfort. Instead, He handed the file to Maya, accepted her confirmation, and turned back toward his assigned desk. Before leaving, he gave Angela a quiet nod. She returned it without smiling. Accountability had not restored the years damaged by inaccurate reports. It had not forced forgiveness from those who refused to give it. It had done something smaller and more durable. It had stopped the department from pretending the harm had never happened. Angela looked toward the elderly woman as the young officer handed her a copy of the report. The woman thanked him and walked toward the exit. Morning sunlight moved across the lobby floor as the glass doors opened for her. Angela remembered the cold parking lot, the covered nameplate, and the report written before the facts. Her title had exposed the failure, but her title had never been the reason she deserved fairness. That was the lesson the department had finally been forced to learn. Respect that appears only after rank is revealed is not respect. Justice begins when the same truth is owed to everyone, whether they enter wearing a uniform, carrying a briefcase, or asking for help with an empty purse. As the doors closed behind the woman, the lobby became quiet again. Angela took one last look at the officers, the cameras, and the records now protected by policy. Then she walked upstairs to begin another day. The question Westbridge had faced was no longer whether one officer had judged one woman unfairly. The real question was deeper, and it remained for everyone listening: how many people are still being misjudged simply because no powerful title appears beside their name?